in cars on the roads, and we spent hours and hours cheering the American soldiers. And they were dropping chocolate, biscuit, chewing gum, cigarettes. That was a great period. When I was a boy, I've seen almost exclusively American soldiers. Once in a while, a British column, and in our village for several weeks, a Canadian forestry company. They were there to work with the American engineers. We enjoyed their presence because some of them could get by in French, coming from Quebec. And you know, the language was a barrier at that time. Between September, First Liberation, and December, Battle of the Bulge, we had a normal life. For everyone, the war was over, we were going to school. But after school, we had sometimes an additional job. We visited our American friends because they wanted to exchange their rations against eggs, potatoes, and so on. That was our job, to purchase for the American soldiers. And I had always had an additional request. They wanted to have cognac, probably a reminder from Normandy. And also tried to explain, asking a question, do you have a great sister? They were very interested in our sisters. And we were doing the same job for the Canadians, a bit easier. Battle of the Bulge, it was quite different. I remember the day, the German attack, I was 9, I had a brother who was 11, we went to school. And the teacher was standing in front of the school, and he said, don't be scared, return home, you'll come back later. Yes, we came back almost 1 year later, the longest holiday of my life. Arriving home, the first Germans were there, just like on a war movie. When you watch a war movie, the German spearhead, they're always arriving on a sidecar, that's characteristic. 2 of them on a sidecar. Rather kind, they gave cigarettes to my father. They could speak French, probably they had been in occupation in Belgium before. And they said, we promise to be back, here we are. That was our first contact, not so bad. Then progressively we'll be completely occupied. When I say completely, we had Germans from the kitchen to the attic. They had taken all the beds and we were sleeping on the floor, side by side with the German soldiers. Beginning of the battle, we were to some extent lucky because we were occupied by a detachment from the Wehrmacht. The Wehrmacht is the regular German army. They were nervous but had respect for the rules of war. My mother was obliged to cook for them, but we also received part of the food. Then they were fair. A bit later, we received an additional SS detachment. Nobody knew anything about organization, but everyone was able to see that these Germans were completely different. Black uniform, very young, excited, arrogant, priority on everyone. It was an army inside young. They were even hated by the other Germans. When I studied military history, I could identify that SS detachment, and maybe you heard about that division. There was a horrible war crime in France, in Oradour-sur-Glane. Did you hear about that? That's the village where they burned 600 people in the church, Oradour-sur-Glane. It was the 2nd Panzer SS division, Das Reich. We had a detachment of the same division. And during the battle, surprisingly, they didn't commit any war crime. Maybe clever enough to understand that an inquiry was in progress, better to keep quiet. My father was a ranger, a forester. And for that reason, our house was at some distance from the village, at the edge of the forest. We had no running water, we had only a well for water. Before leaving, the Germans had taken all the water from the well. And the next day, suddenly it was very quiet, all the Germans had disappeared. My father went outside to pick up some clean snow to melt it, to make a hot beverage, and the first shell fell, and he received a shrapnel in the chest. He could run home, kissed each of us, fell on the ground, he was dead. We went to the basement, praying, crying, whatever you want, and after a while, we heard the hello. Said, the Americans are there. No, it was an SS, with his revolver in his hand, and he stood in front of us for a long time, my mother trying to explain that her husband had just been killed, and eventually he disappeared. I think I understood much later. Probably he didn't want to kill us. He wanted to make sure that no Germans were hiding to surrender. That's my post-war understanding. We returned to the basement. Once again I had said that SS is back, no, 2 American soldiers. They searched the basement to make sure there were no Germans there. Then became kind, giving chocolate and biscuit, and they explained that our house was burning. It was ablaze. We didn't know because we were in the basement. And they decided to evacuate all the family on a jeep. I had 2 brothers, a sister, my mother, and I was sitting on the hood of the jeep. You see a boy sitting on the hood of the jeep. And we went to the next village where my grandmother had a small house. On both sides of the road, you had German prisoners of war. Nobody to guard them. It wasn't necessary. They were happy for them. The war was over. After the battle, as we had lost everything, we were allowed to go to the American kitchen to receive some food after the truce. And we discovered it was in the church. Everything was in the church. Command post, aid station, kitchen. And we discovered the American food, a bit surprising. Corned beef, chopped pork, pancakes almost every day, but we were happy to receive something to eat. A word about chocolate. You know that Belgium is famous for chocolate. We understood why the Americans, they were giving their chocolate. It was quite impossible to eat. It was so hard. But you had the number of calories to survive 24 hours. And it was made hard to resist to the heat in the tropical countries. It was the same for the biscuit. It was also absolutely hard. But so it is. After the battle, we had a long holiday. And